My daughter told everyone I was an abusive mother, so I released the security footage of her attacking me. Everything started falling apart when she turned 16 and decided I was the enemy in her perfect teenage world. The accusations came out of nowhere during what should have been a normal family dinner at my sister's house. She stood up dramatically, tears streaming down her face, and announced to everyone present that I had been physically and emotionally abusing her for years. My heart stopped in that moment because I knew exactly what this meant for my life. My sister's face went pale, my mother dropped her fork, and my brother-in-law immediately started asking questions. The room filled with this heavy silence that felt like it was crushing my chest. I tried to speak, to defend myself, but every word that came out of my mouth sounded hollow and desperate. Within hours, the story had spread through our entire extended family like wildfire. My phone started buzzing with messages from relatives I hadn't spoken to in months, all asking if the allegations were true. Some were supportive, others were accusatory, and a few were just fishing for gossip. The worst part was seeing the doubt in people's eyes when they looked at me. The school got involved 2 days later when she repeated her claims to a counselor. Suddenly, I was dealing with social workers, investigators, and a system that seemed designed to assume guilt before innocence. They treated me like I was already convicted of something terrible. The questions were invasive and humiliating, and I felt like I was drowning in a nightmare that wouldn't end. My work situation became unbearable almost immediately. Somehow word had gotten out, and my colleagues started treating me differently. The lunch invitations stopped. Conversations would halt when I walked into a room, and I could feel their eyes following me everywhere. My supervisor called me into her office for what she called a wellness check, but I knew she was really trying to figure out if I was a danger to others. The legal consultation was devastating because the attorney explained how difficult these cases could be to defend. He told me that even if charges were never filed, the damage to my reputation could be permanent. Child abuse allegations follow you forever, he said, and I felt my future crumbling with each word. The retainer fee alone was going to drain my savings account. Living in the same house with her became an impossible situation filled with tension and fear. Every interaction felt like walking through a minefield, where one wrong move could lead to more accusations. I started recording our conversations on my phone, documenting everything, because I was terrified of what she might claim next. The trust between us had been completely shattered. My friends began distancing themselves one by one, and I understood why, even though it broke my heart. Nobody wants to be associated with someone accused of hurting a child, especially when that child is their own daughter. The isolation was suffocating, and I found myself spending most evenings alone, replaying every moment of our relationship, trying to figure out where everything went wrong. The financial strain was enormous because I had to hire the attorney, pay for my own psychological evaluation, and deal with the fact that my work performance was suffering. My boss started questioning my ability to handle my responsibilities, and I knew my job was hanging by a thread. The stress was making me physically ill, and I was losing weight rapidly. Sleep became impossible as I lay awake every night wondering how my own child could destroy my life so completely. I kept thinking about all the sacrifices I had made for her, all the times I had put her needs before my own, all the love I had poured into raising her. The betrayal cut deeper than any physical pain I had ever experienced. Then something unexpected happened that changed everything in ways I never could have imagined. While going through old files on my computer, I remembered the security system I had installed 2 years earlier after some break-ins in our neighborhood. The cameras had been recording everything, and I had completely forgotten about them in the chaos of the accusations. My hands were shaking as I accessed the footage from the past few months. What I found was shocking, beyond anything I had prepared myself for. There were multiple instances of her being physically aggressive toward me, throwing things, and even hitting me during arguments. The cameras had captured everything with crystal clear audio and video. The most damning footage showed an incident from 3 weeks before her accusations, where she had completely lost control during an argument about her curfew. She had thrown a glass at me, which shattered against the wall, and then she had actually struck me across the face while screaming about how much she hated me. I had tried to calm her down, speaking softly and backing away, but she had continued her attack. But there was something else in the footage that made my blood run cold. In several clips, I could see her practicing her crying, rehearsing what looked like emotional breakdowns, and even recording herself on her phone making false statements about me. She had been planning this destruction of my life for weeks, maybe even months. The psychological evaluation I had been dreading suddenly became my salvation, because the expert who reviewed the footage immediately recognized the calculated nature of her behavior. She explained that this level of manipulation and planning indicated serious psychological issues that required immediate intervention. The tables had turned completely, and now everyone was concerned about my daughter's mental state rather than my parenting. Releasing the footage to the relevant authorities was one of the hardest decisions I had ever made. This was my child, and despite everything she had done to me, I still loved her desperately. But I also knew that I couldn't let her destroy my life and potentially do this to others in the future. The footage spoke for itself, and there was no denying what it showed. The social workers who had been investigating me were stunned by what they saw. Their entire perspective shifted immediately, and they started asking different questions about my daughter's behavior patterns and mental health history. They began treating me as a victim rather than a perpetrator, which was both relieving and heartbreaking at the same time. My family's reaction to the footage was mixed and complicated. My sister was horrified and apologetic, begging for forgiveness for doubting me. My mother was devastated, crying for hours about how she had failed both of us. But some relatives were angry that I had exposed my daughter's issues so publicly, claiming I should have handled it privately within the family. The legal ramifications were swift and decisive. All investigations into my alleged abuse were immediately closed, and the focus shifted to getting my daughter the mental health support she desperately needed. The attorney who had been preparing to defend me against abuse charges was now helping me navigate the complex world of adolescent psychiatric care. My daughter's initial reaction to being caught was explosive and terrifying. She denied everything despite the clear video evidence, claiming the footage was somehow fake or manipulated. When that didn't work, she tried to claim I had driven her to violence through years of emotional abuse. The mental health professionals saw right through her attempts at manipulation. The school situation resolved itself quickly once the administration saw the footage. They were embarrassed about how they had handled the initial allegations and immediately implemented new protocols for investigating such claims. My daughter was transferred to a specialized program designed for students with behavioral issues, which was both necessary and heartbreaking. Going back to work after everything had been resolved was awkward and uncomfortable for weeks. My colleagues didn't know how to act around me, and I could tell that some of them still harbored doubts despite the clear evidence of my innocence. The damage to my professional reputation was significant, and I knew it would take time to rebuild trust and credibility. The aftermath of releasing the footage brought unexpected revelations about my daughter's behavior that I had been blind to for years. Friends and teachers started coming forward with stories of her manipulation, lying, and aggressive behavior that they had witnessed but never reported. I realized that I had been living in denial about the severity of her issues. The mental health treatment process was long and difficult for both of us. She was diagnosed with several serious conditions that required intensive intervention, and I had to learn how to interact with her in completely new ways. The girl I thought I knew was gone, replaced by someone who needed professional help that I couldn't provide alone. Living arrangements became a major issue because the professionals strongly recommended that she not return home immediately. She was placed in a residential treatment facility, which meant I was suddenly living alone in a house that had been filled with chaos and conflict for years. The silence was both peaceful and devastating. The financial impact of her treatment was staggering, even with insurance coverage. Between the legal fees, medical bills, and specialized programs, I was looking at tens of thousands of dollars in expenses. I had to take out loans and ask family members for help, which was humiliating after everything that had happened. My relationship with my extended family slowly began to heal, but some bridges had been burned permanently. The relatives who had been quickest to believe the worst about me struggled to admit their mistakes, and family gatherings became uncomfortable affairs where everyone pretended everything was normal while walking on eggshells. The support group for parents of children with mental health issues became my lifeline during the darkest months. Hearing other people's stories helped me understand that I wasn't alone, and that these situations were more common than I had ever imagined. The guilt and shame I carried began to lessen as I realized that some things were beyond my control. Dating became impossible because how do you explain to someone that your own daughter tried to destroy your life with false accusations? The few men I attempted to see couldn't handle the complexity of the situation, and I didn't blame them. My personal life had become a cautionary tale that most people wanted to avoid. The legal system's response to false allegations was eye-opening and frustrating. While I was cleared of all wrongdoing, there were no real consequences for my daughter's actions because she was a minor with documented mental health issues. The system that had been ready to destroy me for alleged abuse offered no real justice for actual false accusations. Therapy for myself became essential as I struggled to process the trauma of being falsely accused by my own child. The betrayal was unlike anything I had ever experienced, and I needed professional help to understand how to move forward. The sessions were painful but necessary for my healing process. The media attention that followed the case was minimal but still uncomfortable. A local news station picked up the story as an example of false accusations, and suddenly strangers were commenting on my life online. Most were supportive, but some questioned why I would expose my daughter so publicly, not understanding that I had no choice. Rebuilding my professional reputation took over a year of consistent performance and slowly regaining trust. I had to prove myself all over again, which was exhausting and demoralizing. Some opportunities were lost forever because of the initial allegations, and I had to accept that some damage was permanent. The most difficult part was learning to live with the knowledge that my daughter was capable of such calculated cruelty. The child I had raised, loved, and sacrificed for had been willing to destroy my life for reasons I still don't fully understand. That realization changed me at a fundamental level and affected every relationship I had. Recovery was a slow process that involved rebuilding my sense of self and learning to trust my instincts again. The experience had shattered my confidence in my ability to judge character and situations, even with my own family. I had to learn to forgive myself for missing the signs of her deteriorating mental health. My daughter's progress in treatment was gradual and came with many setbacks. There were moments when she seemed to understand the gravity of what she had done, followed by periods of denial and anger. The professionals warned me that recovery would be a long journey with no guarantees of success. The decision about whether to allow her back into my home was the hardest choice I've ever had to make. The treatment team recommended a gradual reintegration process with strict conditions and ongoing supervision. I wanted to believe that she was getting better, but I also had to protect myself from future false allegations. The security cameras that had saved my reputation remained installed and running constantly. Living under surveillance in my own home was uncomfortable, but it was necessary for my protection. I had learned that trust, once broken so completely, might never be fully restored, even with my own child. The financial recovery took years, because the costs associated with her treatment continued long after the initial crisis. I had to make significant lifestyle changes and work overtime regularly to pay off the debts incurred during the worst period. The economic impact of false accusations extends far beyond the immediate legal costs. My relationship with my daughter today is complicated and fragile. We have rebuilt some connection through family therapy sessions, but there's always an underlying tension and wariness. She has expressed remorse for what she did, but I'm not sure if she truly understands the magnitude of the damage she caused. The experience taught me that mental illness can manifest in ways that are completely unexpected and devastating. My daughter's actions weren't just teenage rebellion or attention-seeking behavior, but symptoms of serious psychological conditions that required professional intervention. Understanding this helped me process some of the guilt and anger I carried. Looking back, I can see warning signs that I missed or dismissed as normal teenage behavior. The manipulation tactics, the dramatic emotional responses, and the way she could turn situations to her advantage were all red flags that I didn't recognize at the time. Education about mental health became crucial for my own healing. The support I received from unexpected places was overwhelming and heartwarming. Coworkers who barely knew me offered emotional support, neighbors helped with practical matters, and even strangers who heard about the case reached out with encouragement. These gestures of kindness helped restore some of my faith in humanity. The legal system's handling of false accusations opened my eyes to how easily someone's life can be destroyed by unfounded claims. The presumption of guilt in abuse cases, while well-intentioned, can devastate innocent people. I became an advocate for more thorough investigations and better protections for the falsely accused. My daughter's future remains uncertain, and I've had to accept that I cannot control her choices or guarantee her success in treatment. All I can do is provide appropriate support while protecting myself from further harm. The balance between love and self-preservation is delicate and constantly shifting. The experience fundamentally changed how I view parent-child relationships and the assumptions we make about family loyalty. I learned that love alone isn't enough to prevent someone from hurting you, and that sometimes the people closest to us are capable of the greatest betrayal. This knowledge is both devastating and liberating. Today, I live with the knowledge that my daughter tried to destroy my life, but I also live with hope that she can recover and become a healthy adult. The security footage that saved my reputation continues to record every interaction, a constant reminder of how quickly everything can change. I've learned to be grateful for the truth, even when it's painful, because without it, I would have lost everything I worked so hard to build. The most important lesson I learned is that sometimes protecting yourself means making choices that others might not understand or approve of. Releasing that footage was necessary for my survival, both legally and emotionally. While some people criticized me for exposing my daughter's issues publicly, I know that I had no other choice if I wanted to clear my name and get her the help she needed. My life now is quieter and more cautious, but it's also more authentic. I've learned to trust my instincts, set boundaries, and prioritize my own well-being alongside my love for my daughter. The journey from victim to survivor was long and difficult, but it taught me strength I never knew I possessed.